Good morning, YouTube. It is NWSL Championship Match Day -3. So we're live on YouTube. And of course, always with Sandra Herrera. I'm Lisa Carlin. And Sandra, we did it last week. We brought in the superstar, Darian Jenkins. We did it again.
I was like, damn, did she forget me?
Never. D, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I love when I get to join on Wednesdays. Makes my morning much brighter.
Yeah, we have fun, Sandra. We have a good time on Wednesdays.
We do. And we're like, Darian, just coming out with us on Wednesdays.
A lot of it, of course, has to do with hanging with you, Sandra. When we get D on, it elevates it. But honestly, a lot of it has to do with the YouTube community because we're live on YouTube. So thanks, y'all, for jumping in with us, hanging with us. Like this video, subscribe to Attacking Third on YouTube because then you can join the conversation in the chat. It's right next to the video. Let us know your thoughts, your questions that you have, especially about the NWSL Championship. Our producer, Mark, he is dropping a poll at the top of the chat for your prediction for NWSL champion. Is it going to be Washington? Is it going to be Orlando? We're going to give our predictions at the end and we'll round it out with the poll. So vote. You have to subscribe in order to vote and join the convo. We want to hear from you. Let us know your questions and everything. Good morning, everyone. I see people jumping in the chat right now. AKB Goalkeeper of the Year says T Money. Ari, what's good? Paul Brown, how's it going, guys? Omid, hi, good morning. I hope everyone's off to a rockin' start. It's a little bit warmer here on the East Coast than it's about to be in the Midwest, where we're all headed to Kansas City.
We're packing correctly, I hope.
I hope so. I hope so. Guys, thanks for joining us. Stay with us. We're about to start the show.
CBS Mornings is clearly celebrating women's soccer.
Join us live from Kansas City to kick off the National Women's Soccer League Championship Weekend.
CBS Mornings.
Hey everyone, welcome into Attacking Third special NWSL Championship Match Day -3 episode. Orlando against Washington Spirit in the NWSL Championship. And we are here to break it all down, give you a vibe check, full NWSL Championship preview breakdown. And of course, in case you missed it, because we always do that on Wednesdays, alongside Sandra Herrera and former NWSL champion. We brought her on the show, Darian Jenkins. I'm Lisa Carlin. Okay, Darian, we're starting with you. You are getting ready. We're all going to Kansas City for the final. So I'll see you ladies in a few days and I can get to give you hugs. But D, are you packed? Are you ready?
No. You should know this by now. Lisa outed me and posted it on her Instagram story, my jewelry bag, which is a disaster. That was a microcosm of how my life is. Messy.
I have to say, the best comment I received was from Morning Footy co-host Alexis Guerreros, and he was like, "She looks like a squirrel digging through the jewelry." You did.
Yeah, that's my life. No, I'm a mess, but it's a lot of fun. It's chaos, but it's fun. So no, I haven't really packed. I have some ideas. So that's what I'm going to be doing after the show. But Lisa, I imagine you're already packed.
I'm actually not. I've been like, my life has kind of just spiraled the last couple of days doing a lot of different things because of the championship and all good things. Yeah. Meetings I'm jumping on, interviews I'm talking about, like going on different shows to promote it and things like that, which is really fun. I have all my clothes. I just have to like see how they're going to fit in a suitcase.
Yeah.
So
you gotta play Tetris with your luggage.
Yeah. I'm checking a bag. I have to.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah, one thing's for sure, we're all overpacking because it's championship week. I love it. I'm leaving right after the show.
For the layers too.
Sandra, you're already packed. You're done.
Yeah. Well, I really wanted to make sure that I was here for the show, so I didn't book my flight until I knew we would be done. So I had to get a little bit of a head start last night if I wanted to make sure I was all good to go here. But yeah, I mean, we'll be all right. It's just a little chilly in the Midwest. Just pack a couple long sleeves. You'll be okay.
A couple long sleeves. I
spent $300 on like heat tech stuff yesterday. It better work.
Darian's gonna be sweating at the game because
I'm gonna be like red in the face, sweating, hair off my back. We'll see.
Oh my gosh. I hope so too. It'll be fun. Either way, it'll be fun because we get number 1 Orlando Pride Shield winners against number 2 Washington Spirit. Let's talk about this game big picture. 2024 NWSL Championship. I want to start with some fun facts for you guys. A little bit of a quiz, a little bit of a trivia, but mostly just fun facts for you. So because it is Orlando against Washington Spirit, when we think back to 2023, this is the first ever NWSL Championship where both finalists weren't even in the playoffs a year ago, and the turnaround that these teams have seen. And also, for the first time since 2019, the NWSL Shield winner has reached the final. Do either of you know who it was in 2019 who did it?
It was Courage, right?
Yeah, North Carolina Courage. I like that. Also, the first time since 2019 that the top 2 seeds, number 1 and number 2, have reached the final. So it was North Carolina who won the Shield. Who was the other team in 2019? Do you know?
Chicago Red Stars.
Yeah, I knew Sandra would know. Darian, you're like, I don't know. I
was like, I know we got knocked out by North Carolina. I think it was in the quarters or the semis.
Yeah.
2019. You were with Rain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But for Orlando Pride, because they're the Shield winners and they've made it back first time since 2019, that's happening. It's also Orlando's first trip to the NWSL final, which is so exciting. It just caps off their record-setting year that they had. Meanwhile, for Washington, do either of you know how many times they've been to an NWSL final?
4?
Good guess. 3. 2016, they ended up losing to Western New York Flash. In 2021, they won and beat, sorry, Sandra, Chicago. And now this will be Washington's 3rd trip. And then coaching-wise, Seb Hines for Orlando Pride and Jonathan Giraldez for Washington Spirit. It is both of their first NWSL finals. It is cool to kind of see all the records and things that have changed this year. I love a good fun fact. But that kind of gives us an overview of Washington and Orlando. So let's talk a little bit about their head-to-head this year, because as we head into this championship, everything is different in the playoffs, but they've already met 2 times in the regular season. Their first meeting early on, end of April, it was in DC. Washington ends up falling 3-2 and Orlando take the win. But it was really a back and forth game. Orlando goes up first. Washington then equalizes. Orlando goes up 2 goals. So it's 3-1. There was a penalty and then Hatch scores again. So it ended up being 3 goals in 15 minutes. Absolutely electric game. Sandra, do you remember this game in DC between these 2 sides in their first meeting?
It gave such chaotic energy. It was like so early. It feels like a lifetime ago at this point.
Right.
We're talking about a game that happened in April. So 2 completely different teams now at this point going into the final. And we're going to get into the weeds of that. But who doesn't love chaos in NWSL? The fact that it gave us a touch of everything. Teams still trying to figure out their identities for 2024. A red card penalty. It was, and 5 goals to boot. So it was fun to just sort of say like, yes, of course, this is what's going to be 2024 is going to be about.
Brianna Martinez for Orlando Pride getting a red card in that first meeting in the 90th minute, very end of the game. The second meeting, much more recent, October 6th. This one was in Orlando. The Pride win 2-0 over Washington. It was a penalty kick from Marta in the second half, and then an own goal that is accredited to Tara McKeown for Washington. But if you guys remember this game, it was pouring rain in Washington.
Yeah.
It was a sloppy match, and the second goal for Orlando comes because Adriana just shoots it from the top of the 18, and
and it was going well wide, very off frame.
Well wide. And Washington was also without Casey Kruger during this match in early October, and Trinity Rodman. And then for Rose Kouassi, it was only her 6th game because she came in during the summer. But this, Darian, this game, I mean, clearly you remember it, but this was the game that Orlando ended up clinching and winning the NWSL Shield.
This game, I think, showed that no matter what is presented to them, Orlando can overcome it and beat it. It may not be the prettiest game, but I never had faith. This is one of the matches for Orlando that's kind of marked a lot of the matches in their season where you never thought that they were going to lose. They never looked like they were defeated in any way or that there was some gap in their game that they couldn't fix. And poor McKeown had a rough game. This one, she caused the penalty and then got the own goal. but Orlando can just make something out of nothing. And Banda, both matches secured penalties for Orlando.
Yes.
So they clearly cannot handle her in the back line, her speed, her cutting ability, what she can do on the ball, her hold up play, her physicality, when to match it, when to not. And we saw it, her capitalize on it in both games, and ultimately gave Orlando that extra edge to win the games.
Dee, as a player, when you play teams and have competition during the regular season with players coming in and out and injuries, it's so different now in the postseason. And so when you are a player heading into this championship match, how much are you reflecting on the 2 matches that you played them in the regular season?
You can use it as motivation certain ways. If you're the team that lost both of those matches, if I'm Washington Spirit, I'm using that as motivation. Orlando has a target on their back. They've sat pretty nearly the entire season. This is the time to shut it down when it really matters. You're Orlando, you've got a little extra pep in your step because you know you've put this team to bed twice in the regular season with arguably their stronger lineups in the mix. Now Washington have a little bit more of a blend, but I think having that, knowing that you beat this team before, just gives you a little bit of an edge. But then again, it's a freaking final. Nothing else matters. Your knocks, what you're coming into the match with, what you've had to overcome. Nobody cares on the field. Once you step on the field, it's life and limb on the line. And it's just going to be a battle. And I actually expect this to be a high-scoring game.
Ooh.
I really do. So. I think everyone's going to go ball all out. It's going to be all vibes. Not so much organized low block defending, because this is the game to win it. And I can't wait to see what these teams put out.
I hope so. I hope these teams just at the first whistle are like, let's go, put it all on the line, and just it kind of expose themselves a little bit. Sandra, as a media personnel extraordinaire, dropping Sandra bombs, but in the NWSL space, essentially the whole time. I mean, we've been doing on Wednesdays our recaps, countdown to Kansas City, and you talked about how you've been at different games, and starting in 2016, you've been at every single final. It's championship week for you too. And for media too. How are you preparing for the game?
I love that you frame it like that, Bud, because this is a big week for us too. I mean, we get up for game days too. Like we're like LFG, like let's go. And it's a part of just kind of that energy from the players that Darian was talking about that can be infectious sometimes. And so I'm so excited for these 2 teams to go head to head. There's nothing like a 1 and 2. I desperately want this to live up to the billing of that. 2 best teams in the league go out there and put it all out there on the line. I love that that we're touching on some of their prior head-to-heads in 2024, because that's also helpful as media. I think you always go back in time and say, how did they look then? What's the vibe of them now going into this match? Because ultimately you can prepare as many storylines as you want, try to, speak with players throughout championship week in the lead up to this event, but no one actually ever really knows what is going to happen until that first whistle blows. So you can have all the prep in the world on the player side of things, on the media side of things for your stories and content, but you don't know until you know. And that is what is so exciting about the NWSL Championship specifically.
I mean, the energy, it is electric. I can't wait for us to actually get to KC, because then you feel it. Emily Sams, defender for Orlando Pride, she was on Morning Footy this morning, and they got to ask her about her nerves. And she was like, I'm not nervous yet. I don't have any of these nerves. Darian, you've played and you've been part of NWSL championships, winning one, might I add. What is the feeling for a player match day -3 of a freaking championship and a final for a player?
At this point, especially thinking about a player like Emily Sams, who has had such an incredible season, you've done all of the work. Your team has overcome so much. This is the week that you get to go enjoy. You're not going to change anything crazy. You're not going to alter your tactics. You're not going to try to surprise the Washington Spirit by having 5 up front or something like that. Especially the way Orlando has played, they've been so consistent. I imagine going into this week, they're treating it just like any other week. It's just any other game. And then the match day -1, it's going to be fun. You're going to let loose. You're going to focus on your set pieces. And you're just going to get amped to go in, all vibes, guns blazing, to the final. But I don't think it really hits you thinking about when we did it at Portland, which was insane because you literally could not hear yourself think on the field. It was a sold out stadium. I've never been booed so much in my life or heard people just like screaming at me for no reason. I didn't even start the game and I was getting like screamed at. It was wild. But going into this, I think you were just all the work has already been done and you're there to enjoy it and lay it all out on the line. And with a team that has been so solid and so close knit and has such a great front office, I think that their heart is totally in this, and it's not really going to hit until they step on the field of how big this really is.
So much of the days leading up to a really big game like this are mental, more so, and going through the motions, right? Finding that routine. Tomorrow on Attacking Third, we have a very special interview with Washington defender Casey Kruger. Sandra and I, we pre-recorded it. I'm being honest here. We did it yesterday. And Sandra, before it, she gave us a little insight into their schedule. And she said Thursday was just a travel day. No training, because you're not looking to get fit. You're not working on anything new. You just have to be mentally prepared and mentally turned on and focus. And so exactly like you said, Darian, going through set pieces, right? Little things that just focus on the mental muscles of flexing them and making sure that they're in the right space. But can't do anything now at this point to change your game, to get any more fit, to better your touch, to have a better shot. You can't. That work happens in the offseason, and these teams have done so much work to get them to this point. Orlando against Washington. The championship countdown is on. This was only surface level. We are diving deep into this matchup. Stick with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Attacking Third. NWSL Championship just days away. Number 1 Shield winners Orlando Pride against Washington Spirit. We are previewing every single angle of this match you could want for. So get set, get your popcorn. Let's dive in. We decided to do tactical positional breakdowns for our previews because there's 3 of us. We're each taking a different part of the pitch. So I'm going to talk about Washington Spirit's attack against Orlando Pride's defense, because that's how they're going to match up on the pitch. Orlando Pride defensively, I'm a defender, so I'm starting defense. Orlando Pride defense this year has been absolutely electric. The records that goalkeeper Anna Morehouse has continued to break with her clean sheets and her shot stopping ability, but so much of it starts ahead of her. So it's Carrie Abello, Kylie Strom, Emily Sams, and Corey Dyke in the back line, with midfielders Haley McCutcheon and Angelina ahead of them. So those are the 6 I'm going to look at defensively, even though McCutcheon and Angelina are technically midfielders, but they do so much work behind them. And when Orlando defends throughout this season, specifically the last several games that have allowed them to make it all the way to the NWSL Championship, it's because the Pride have 5 or 6 players behind the ball. Always. It's rest defense. It is defensive organization that is so keyed in with the vocal communication. Emily Sams doing a lot of the work to organize and make sure people are in right positions, putting good pressure cover on the ball. Now, heading into this game for Orlando against Washington, they don't have to worry about someone like Temwa Shawinga. So it's a little bit of a different game plan than the semifinal against Kansas City, because they don't have to be overly aware of just one individual player. Honestly, it might be harder because Orlando has to keep an eye on Rodman, Kawasi, Hatch, Santos, all of the different threats that are coming forward. On the ball, Emily Sams has to be able to play line breaking balls and provide distribution and be able to switch the point of attack, be so composed on the ball, because you know that Washington's front line is going to press them. Hatch is so quick. She is on the front foot on the counter press. So with the ball and distribution, Sams has to be able to keep it moving. it also has to be body on the line. We saw that for for Orlando defensively over the last couple of games, doing everything to stop a shot, prevent it even from getting to Anna Morehouse in goal. And that's what the Orlando defense is going to do. And against a Washington attack with Trinity Rodman, Ashley Hatch, Rose Kouassi, this is such a dynamic trio. In their semifinal game against Gotham, the second half changed because Trinity Rodman switched from the right side of the field to the left side to have a better matchup. I want this Washington front three of Rodman, Hatch, and Kouassi to be interchanging in the opening 10 minutes of this game, right? Get 10 minutes under their belt to go against the back line that they're matched up against. Then if it's not working, switch. Have a lot of interchange. Use the entire width of the front line, which Washington likes to do, right? Kouassi can stretch them. Rodman likes to get the ball in those wide flanks. Spread out Orlando's back line because that'll open up little tiny pockets for Lacey Santos to make deep runs from the midfield into the attacking end. And those gaps have to be opened by stretching it wide. Ashley Hatch has to have an energized game where her counter press is kickstarting the ball winning abilities for Washington, pressuring Sams and Strom in the back line and steering the press for Washington to go where they want to go. But Washington has to be able to adjust on the fly. And it starts with these front three using the first 10 minutes to read the game, understand what Orlando is giving them spacing wise, but trust in Rodman, Hatch, Kouassi to find the spaces themselves, to go at the back lines, to find those gaps in Orlando's back line. I am so excited for this matchup because I think both lines, Orlando defensively and Washington offensively, have grown since their last meeting on October 6th. Sandra, when you think about Orlando defense, Washington attack, am I missing anything huge here? Any big gaps in my analysis and breakdown?
I love listening to your breakdowns, especially on the defensive side of things, because it makes me throw it back to the early days of A3 when we were always like, we love defenders. So let's start with defense and talking about defenders. But I also love that you're including a bit of some of the defensive midi mindsets for Orlando. I think it's going to be tough. And I think it's important to note as we listen to you and eventually we're going to toss it to Darian here about these sort of attacking breakdowns, that it's going to look and feel a bit different. So I'm here for what's arguably one of the best defenses in the league going up against what will be one of the more high octane, best attacking teams in the league.
Darren, what about you? What stands out to you about Orlando defense, Washington offense? Anything I missed? We can't hear you, bud.
I want to hear
Sorry,
you.
Thank you. I don't think Orlando's had the full taste of Kouassi and really what she can do, because we've seen her look more and more comfortable with the Spirit. I think get into actual game fitness with the Spirit. She's a feisty player. She's not afraid to go 1v1. She has the boldness to try some very, very specific moves that's not just based around speed and how she can get around you. She was cooking Jess Carter last week. One of the best defenders in the world, cooking her. So I'm anxious to see how Corey Dyke handles her, Emily Sams, if Rodman and her end up switching sides. How does Carrie Abello have to stay pinned back a lot more? I think it's actually going to have to switch up Orlando's game plan a bit, because Rodman and Kouassi, those are two huge threats. Orlando likes to send one of their outside backs really high, whether it's Dyke or it's Abello, mostly Abello. But it's going to make them have to adapt in that way. But I like it. This is the matchup we're dying to see. We got it in Kansas City. Screamer of 5 goals in a match. I expect to see it in this match because I think both teams are going to play smart, to stick to their style of play, especially in the attack. Well, Washington, they like to switch up their attack quicker than a defense will change up. But I think we'll see Orlando have to decide. I'm interested to see when we see them decide to sit back a little bit more and maybe more of a flat 4 to try to handle Kouassi and Rodman.
and to try to just keep them in front of them, because Washington attack switches so much. As a defender, you have to just drop and give them a little bit more space so you can at least see the interchange coming and communicate on it. And I think a lot of the initial press is going to have to come from McCutcheon and Angelina because of the way Hatch has been playing recently, dropping off the back line a little bit deeper into the midfield. She has to be picked up by McCutcheon and Angelina, because if Hatch has too much time, it's not going to work, especially if Rodman switches and goes to the left. She, last week when that switch happened, she liked to find Hatch a lot in that little pocket and then cut in herself with a little interchange. It's hard to defend against.
McCutcheon and Angelina are going to have, it sounds so weird saying McCutcheon, Haley and Angelina are going to have their hands full with Hatch dropping into that 10 spot, because they do play a little bit more flat. You have to be so in tune with your other midfielder to block out those passes. And I mean, Haley can cover a lot of freaking ground. We've seen that. The girl doesn't get tired. She's literally gets the best. I've played with her I played with and against her for like 6 years. She's the first on every single fitness test. That doesn't matter though when you don't have the ball. And with Hatch, with Jonah Heraldes making her more of a false 9, where she's more of a 10. She's not really stretching the line. She's laying the ball off. She's orchestrating play. She's tying the lines together. There has to be so much organization. And I think with last week, we saw Emily Sams on the goal that Dabinia scored. She was worried about Temwa Shawinga. She wasn't looking over her shoulder at Dabinia. Yeah. Her last look was to the center spot to see where Shawinga was, and Dabinia was wide open. I think Hatch is going to cause a similar issue, similar to what we saw last week, but I'm just looking to see how they adapt. Both of these coaches like to push and pull, and it's more of a chess match between these two. So it's going to be fun to see. I think this is actually where the game will be the most interesting.
With Orlando defense, Washington offense.
Yes. Yeah.
I imagine also as the game unfolds in the first 45 minutes, we could see a significant tactical changes in the second half, depending on how it happens, because the coaches will have time at halftime to kind of break down those individual battles and matchups that we see.
Or we're going to see keepers go down 4 times in the first half and have 20 minutes of added time. So we'll see. Coaches are loving that this year.
Okay, Z, flip the script on us. Talk about Orlando's attack and Washington's defense.
So Washington's defense, I think, is much stronger than we saw most of the season. I'll say 80% of the season. Kruger's back. Mickey Owen's on fire. They have Esme Morgan and Gabby Carl. The weak point I can see being for the Spirit is Esme Morgan. Because she has not gone against Barbara Banda yet. She has not gone against Amarta yet, and how they combine against each other. That is a lot to handle. That is a lot of very, very technical players, very quick transitions, a lot of power. It's intimidating to play against, especially when you look at Tara McKeown, who's has caused 2 penalties against them, ultimately lost them the games because of the penalties, and how quick Banda is and how she can bait you with her movement to try to collapse last minute, and she's already touched the ball away. So I think they're going to be very weary of how they try to go against Barbara Banda, just moving their feet, not trying to body against her, not trying to tackle her anywhere near and around the 18. I like that Casey Kruger's back. I think she brings so much leadership to that back line. Gabby Carl's been very solid for them. Then you look at Orlando's front line. You have Allie Watt, who's in the best form I think I've ever seen her play in. Looking so dynamic, going 1v1, being an assister, not taking shots that I think earlier in the season we would have seen her take these very low percentage goal scoring shots. She's looking to cut it back and assist, and it's happening. Marta, I mean, I don't need to say anything. Barbara Banda, Lisa's MVP for the year. Adriana, who has a great track record against the Spirit. It's 4 players who interchange so much that it's really difficult to keep track of. How are you staying organized? How are you not causing a foul? Are you moving your feet quick enough? I like this battle. I think it's going to ask a lot of Spirit's backline. I think Casey Kruger will be pinned a lot more, worrying about where Banda is going, because we see her with the U.S. national team have to cover a lot of ground, making up for everybody else. I think she's going to shoulder a lot of that responsibility. But I don't know. We may see another penalty in this match, because I don't think that this back line can handle Banda and what she offers.
I mean, 2 penalties the first 2 times they met, right? 1 in each of the matchups. I know. I'm nervous for turnovers for Washington's back line and getting pressured on by Banda right? Who just runs at you, and then Marta able to pick off the pass. If I'm Mickey Owen and Morgan, I am not playing around. I
Just
am
kick it. Just kick it.
just getting it
Get
away.
out of there.
Getting it. Same as Kingsbury too, like because she had a questionable game with her feet in the semifinal.
Yeah, she held on too long. Well, and we've seen Morgan, I think, still having to adapt to the NWSL and how fast players can close you down. I mean, for me, the NWSL forwards, the first thing you're taught is prey on mistakes. Prey on mistakes the center backs are going to make because it's bound to happen. Look at the pass that's moving a little slow. Look at the touch that goes a little too far away or that has some awkward backspin where it's not going to go clean off of their foot. Banda does that times 7. Esme Morgan has not felt that yet.
And Marta. Yeah,
it just goes and goes. This is why I think it's going to be high scoring because I assume Orlando's going to score.
Yeah.
I do think Spirit have a strong attack. It's just going to be boom, 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 golazo, golazo.
I hope so.
Possibly a penalty, very likely. Let's see who comes out on top in the 90 minutes.
Sandra, do you think it's going to be high scoring?
I'm almost kind of nervous now where I'm just like, are we overhyping it? Are we gassing it up? Like, are we about to get like the narrowest of narrow score lines? But I don't think so.
Both of these coaches play bold.
And this is absolutely the time in which they're going to do it. I think we'll see adjustments quicker than maybe even we saw in the quarter or in the semis. And I think if we're not getting, at least 5 goals, we're getting something, maybe like a 2-2. Maybe they need extra time to handle this one because maybe part of that first half is a little cagey. And I think great arguments on both sides. But I think when you really lay down all the cards and the personnel that's going to be available in these 2 matches, I think on paper you still give the advantage a little bit to Orlando Pride.
Ooh, I like it. At the end of the show, we're going to give full predictions. If you're with us live on YouTube, there's a poll. Who is going to win the NWSL championship, Orlando Pride or Washington Spirit? Vote, because we are taking that into account as well. Okay, we talked offense, we talked defense. We are going to take a very quick break, and then we're breaking down the midfield. Stay with us. Welcome back to Attacking Third. We are getting set for the 2024 NWSL Championship, Orlando Pride against Washington Spirit, and we're digging deep into the tactical breakdowns. Sandra, you're looking at the midfield because this is a battle. Take us through Orlando against Washington's midfield. What are we watching for?
A battle for sure, like you mentioned. And I got to be frank, it feels a little bit like Washington Spirit's middle third is going to have the game of their lives, which is a little bit intense considering it's full of a lot of rookies and you've been asking that of them for 2 knockout games at this point. And now you're going to ask them to do it again in arguably the biggest game of their lives. So yes, go out there and have one, but it's going to be tough because we've already mentioned a couple of these players already. And that's how important they are to Orlando's makeup and their schemes. The fact that we're shouting out Angelina, Haley McCutcheon, Adriana, we haven't even really had a chance to talk about enough. Ali Watt as well. These are players who interchange so much and become either part of a front 6 or a defensive back line and really get out there and make things happen. And some of these players have become a little bit of X factor type of athletes for Orlando Pride. I mean, Haley McCutcheon is for sure, for me, going to be the player to watch. She was one of the unsung heroes or underrated players that I was keeping an eye on during these earlier knockout rounds because, yes, there's going to be a lot of emphasis on Barbara Banda. There's going to be a ton of attention, respectfully, on Marta. And McCutcheon can sometimes be one of those players in that kind of D-midi role that does her job so you don't really maybe talk about her. But for some reason, when she got into these knockout rounds, now she is getting the goal scoring started for Orlando Pride. So she is going to be a huge player for me to keep an eye on in the final, and that's alongside Angelina. The chemistry that this duo has built over the course of the regular season is so tangible. You can feel it and see it at the same time on the pitch. They're both equally good at really finding that sort of long range or even kind of mid-range pass, that kind of slingshot type of pass that we see for Banda and then possibly Marta. They're so integral to the attack. And then when we're looking at things defensively, it's not so much that they're such a defensive team, Orlando Pride. I wouldn't even label them as such, even though they have great defensive stats. It's just how calculated they are in their organization for me. And again, that's in credit to their midfield. So I think it's, when we're rating things, we're talking about defensive lines going against attacks and attacks going against defensive lines. I think it's going to be won and lost in this middle third because of how possibly transitional this game could be. If we're all feeling like it's going to be high scoring, it's going to absolutely be won and lost in the middle.
I like that shout a lot because of the midfield. I think there's a lot of pressure on Washington's young players in the midfield. Hal Hirschfeld defensively for Washington, she does a good job of getting stuck in, being a bit of a bruiser. I think that could throw off someone like a Banda, right? If you body her up a little, there's going to be physicality coming from Hal Hirschfeld, but I'm most nervous of her with the ball. She got stripped a couple times against Gotham, and Esther just did not punish Hirschfeld or Washington enough. And you cannot give those chances to Banda or to Marta. They're going to punish you. They are going to punish you every single time.
Yeah, I think
it's
go ahead,
Sandra.
Oh, thank you. I think in terms of personnel, when I was mentioning out of the break, like just on paper, who's available, I think when you're looking at Orlando, the fact that the champagne problems have already kind of shown themselves for the Pride. Who is Seb Hines going to start in that kind of middle four that we see sometimes for Orlando? Is he going to go with Adriana like he did in the semi? Is Summer Gates up to speed? It looks like she got a little cramping there in the quarter. Like, is she going to be the one that you want to start and help set the tempo? And you have all these options when you go down their bench, who you can rotate in or who you can rotate out. And for the Spirit, yes, you have lots of talented players, but they're missing a couple of significant players. And again, this is a lot. This is a huge responsibility that you keep asking of your rookie midfielders. So mentioned turnovers very, very high up in the beginning of this episode. And it could come down to that for me.
Yeah, it's tough just looking at their last lineup. Hirschfeld, Brown.
Yeah. Steinbrook. Yeah.
It's Steinbrook. That is a young midfield. Yeah. McCutcheon's a bruiser.
They're all rookies.
I don't know if you guys remember. McCutcheon is a bruiser. She's solid. Marta does not care. Banda will run you over. Yep. This is a tough, quick, very physical Orlando Pride midfield that rotates a lot, that can hit you hard, and a lot more experience. I mean, first sub off the bench for Orlando's midfield could be Yates. It could be Morgan Gautrat. That's a lot of years in the NWSL, a lot of years of players that have won a lot in the NWSL against a rookie class that's going to be difficult. But when you're a rookie, you got nothing to lose. Right. There's beauty in not having that pressure because you just simply don't know. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see who really comes out on top. I mean, with the three in the middle with Spirit against Orlando's typical two, they could override numbers. They could try to combine a lot of triangles to break through that press between McCutcheon and Angelina, but they have to move the ball quickly. But again, they haven't really felt a full Banda, full Marta, Ali Watt. It's going to be tough for the Spirit midfield.
It's going to be so fun to watch this. There are a couple different players that could rotate in and around. Let's start with Washington. We're putting on our managerial caps now, friends. For Washington last week, in the semifinal, they rotated in and had Lacey Santos starting in the midfield instead of someone like a Courtney Brown coming off the bench. If you are Jonathan Giraldes, Darian, I'm going to start with you. Are you making any changes to the Washington semifinal starting lineup? Who are you looking at to potentially be a change or rotation, if any changes from the semifinal to the final for Washington?
I'm not changing anything. Lacey Santos needs to be in there. She offers so much more to this team. Also a bruiser.
Mm-hmm.
She's also a bruiser, I think. Yeah, and we saw a lot of combination play between her and Kawasi, her sending balls through to Rodman when Rodman was on the right side. She likes to get into the 18. She's always hungry to score, to be in for those cutback balls. We know Spirit's worked a lot on getting balls end line, sending crosses in. I got to do a coach's call with Jonathan Giraldes, and something he was key on is decision-making and commitment to get into the box. We take low percentage shots a lot of the time because we have a young team, and we don't get near post, far post, and the 6. We have to commit to get to those if our game plan is to get balls wide, isolate our forwards, and get them to have service into the box. So I think with Lacey Santos, she brings that already because she is so eager to score and she's going to fuel that energy. You have to have her on the pitch.
Yeah.
Sandra, what about you?
Listen, Lacey Santos, probably, we're talking about the X factors. For me, that's probably going to be that for the Spirit, for sure, alongside maybe Kawasi as well. You have to start her. I mean, she got the start in the semifinal, but Giraldes in the post-game, access conference, whatever, referenced to Santos, and he said that it took a little while for her to get into the game. She's had to build her minutes back up in a very crucial window of time for the Spirit. So I think when you can maybe coach a player through and as an athlete, maybe you compartmentalize. It's just like, this is the game. This is the game where I just have to have one incredible performance. Injuries, small, lingering, nagging bruises, muscle strains, whatever, be damned. This is the game that I'm going to go all out and we will recover afterwards. For Santos, it's absolutely going to be that type of player for the Spirit. But again, I think it's also a little bit of, in this coaching matchup, that's the first challenge for me if I'm the head coach. You're already playing the game as the coach because you have to put together the formation or the tactical plan, what you think is going to work best for your team in the biggest game of the year. And then you have to get your players to buy in and execute. So I am curious if there are going to be some bold changes from either coach to start this final. And if there's not, I do think it might be a little cagey in maybe the first 15.
There will be changes ultimately, though, right? Like in the 11 that started, not going to play the entirety of the game. When you look at Washington, they have some players that can come in off the bench and change things. Maybe not at the same quality of depth as Orlando, but Washington still has those players, right? Even if Santos doesn't start, her coming in off the bench is such a difference maker. But I think Santos will start. I think we'll see the same 11 for Jonah Giraldes as we did in the semifinal for Washington against Gotham. But off the bench, McKenna Morris in the midfield. She was key in their set pieces. That's ultimately how they got the equalizing goal against Gotham, was Morris being involved in the play attacking wise. So she adds, as a rookie, adds a lot of that depth. I also think Gabby Carl coming in off the bench could provide in the back line for Washington, because if we think it's going to be the same lineup, that would be Paige Mateo, Tara McKeown, Esme Morgan, and Casey Kruger across the back line. They're going to be tired, guys. They're going to be tired by the 60-minute mark, right? 70-minute mark. And that's where I think we could see game changers. Are there game changers, Darian, that maybe we're sleeping on for Washington Spirit that will elevate coming off the bench?
Brittany Ratcliffe. When we had Laura Harvey on, she coached her when she played for Utah, when Laura was the coach there, and I played with her at Kansas City. And talk about a ball of energizer. Like, she is an energizer bunny, whether she starts the match or she comes off of the bench. I think she can cause a lot of problems. Say it's 0-0 or something, which I don't think it's going to be, or 2-2 going into the end of the match. Ratcliffe is a player you want on the field. Maybe it's subbing a midfielder out and you go all gas, no breaks. We're going into the attack. We're transitioning. That's the player that I'm looking at to the bench and the first pick for me because she's a proven goal scorer. She's been to finals before. She's a veteran. She's very smart. And she's eager to get into the 18 and work some magic. So I think she's a player that we've kind of slept on all season because when players have been injured, she's stepped up and scored goals. She's come off the bench and scored goals and won games for the Spirit. So yeah, that's definitely the player I would key in on that could be key.
Great shout for Brittany Radcliffe because of her energy. And if it's a transition game and if it goes into extra time, you want that spark, especially towards the end of the match off the bench. Let's switch, put on our Seb Hines Orlando managerial hat. We saw some changes in the semifinal due to Summer Yates dealing with a bit of a knock. She did not start. It was Allie Watt instead. We did get to see Summer Yates come on towards the end of that game, which is good news for Orlando fans. But Sandra, when you think about the starting 11 for Orlando in the semi against Kansas City as they head towards this final, will there be any changes in the starting lineup for the Pride?
For the starting lineup, possibly Summer Yates. I think it depends. I think she's that good. I think she's that good of a player who has kind of forced that sort of good problem on the coaching staff in terms of how they're going to rotate in. But again, it really just depends on her availability, how she felt coming out of the semi. So if she's given the green light, I do think there's a possibility she can get that start. I think
Sandra,
it's more about
Sandra. If Summer Yates is available for say 60 minutes, 70 minutes, not a full 90, do you start her?
Yes, because I want all gas, no breaks. And I think Summer Yates is the type of player that can do that in a very stealthy kind of way. I love the way over the season she has just sort of put defenders to sleep by kind of just finding spaces and pockets to just kind of drift in. And I'm not saying that this won't be the game that she's unable to do that, but she's capable of it. And with so much attention on maybe some others like Martha or Banda, she'll have that ability to do that. So it all depends on if she's able to go. Otherwise, there's folks like Julie Doyle, who's able to come off the bench and provide a bit of an attacking spark. I'm absolutely looking at Julie Doyle to maybe get some time in this game as a game changer, or maybe even the veterans. I think you bring in a Carson Pickett or a Morgan Gautrat. If you have that lead and you need to shut things down, you absolutely bring in your veterans to do that.
Game changers for you, Darian, for Orlando?
Sandra kind of took mine. I think Julie Doyle is one of those players that can come in. She likes to be on the ball. She loves to have a lot of touches. She can attract defenders. She has decent service into the 18. I think Celia Jimenez is a big one. She has a lot of experience in this league. If you're needing somebody to come in, and we saw this in the last match, kind of ride the game out and be really smart, calm on the ball, kill a lot of time. She's a master of the dark arts in soccer, which is very annoying to play against, but great when she's on your team.
Wait, what does that mean? Master of the dark arts in soccer?
She knows how to waste time. She knows. Think of Emily Sonnet, where she knows how to bait you to maybe kicking the ball out because you think you're going to get hit, or she'll throw the ball into the middle of the pitch and carry it out and be like, "Oh no, sorry, I thought it was over here." And it wastes 30 seconds of time. Or they sit and dance on the ball and do a bunch of tricks, and it's hella irritating to play against. Celia does that very, very well, even in training. It's annoying when she's not on your team. So I think that's a player, if you're trying to ride the game out, she could come in and do that for you.
I love this. Either way, it's going to be a battle. Players off the bench that can change things. If Summer Yates does get that start, Allie Watt, she will make such a difference. There is depth, there is talent, there is excitement all over the place for Orlando and Washington. We are wrapping it up this show with a lot of predictions. I am so excited to hear what you guys think and looking into your crystal ball for this championship. Don't go anywhere. everyone, welcome back to Attacking Third. 3 days away from the NWSL Championship, Orlando Pride against Washington Spirit. We have broken it down on every single angle you could possibly imagine. So we hope you enjoyed it. Let us know. Let us know if you like this one. It is prediction time because we are clearly all so good at giving predictions throughout the year on games, scores, everything like that. So why not? One final time for the championship. Let's start with the big one. Washington or Orlando? Who wins it? Who wins it? Sandra, I'm starting with you.
All right. So I know that we all want a barn burner and we want to see some goals, but I can't help but lean a little bit into the history of this championship final and wonder if that's going to be a little bit of the opposite. I think it'll give us a lot of excitement. I think we'll see a lot of dangerous opportunities, but I think we're going to maybe get a little bit more of a more narrow scoreline than we're anticipating. I'm going to go with Orlando. They have been producing an incredible season. It's near magical what they've been doing throughout 2024. They're playing as if they cannot and will not be denied. And I think going into this final, it's tough to choose against them, and that's why I'm not. So I'm going to go Orlando 2-1.
Ooh, and a scoreline.
I like that. Lisa, I want you to go next because I feel like you're going to dare to be different.
I'm not because I want to be right. I think Orlando's going to win this one. They have too much depth, too much power. Orlando all the way. They are a team right now that has an underdog mentality because of being back in the playoffs for the first time in 7 years. Their first final, their coach just won head coach of the year in the NWSL. They are behind him in so much. They are having joy in the game. They also have Marta to play for. There is an element of playing for someone who absolutely lives and breathes this sport and this game. And you can see that all over her face. 38-year-old, what? That doesn't even matter because the way that she elevated the game, even just in the semifinal, that goal will be seen forever and ever and ever as an insanity amount of technique and power and skill and just ruthlessness from someone like Marta. And that is contagious. And when you get to this kind of stage, a player that has played in some of the biggest games on the biggest stages internationally, this means a little bit more and a little bit differently to Marta and to this Orlando team. They can't be stopped defensively. They're so organized and they just have so many threats attacking wise, plus an MVP candidate in Barbara Banda. So I'm going to go with Orlando.
I could have guessed that. Although Lisa, your bracket is
my bracket shot. I mean, you think Kansas City in the final. So now I get to do whatever I want.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, there's bliss in that. Yeah, I'm gonna jump on the Orlando bandwagon, but I've also been on this bandwagon all season long. Orlando has so much to do it for. Lisa, you mentioned Marta. Let's also think about Luana.
Yeah,
this is a player that got diagnosed with cancer during the season and has overcome it. And it was at the semifinal match. You see all of the players wearing purple bands with an L on it and her number, holding up L's for her name after they score goals, after they've won the match. There's so much heart behind this team that I don't think the Spirit just doesn't have so much on the line that Orlando has. So much blood, sweat, and tears of the Spirit that Orlando have put into this season. And the culmination of Seb Hines becoming the first Black head coach to win Coach of the Year, Marta having an incredible season, Barbara Banda, that it goes from every single line. And I think Orlando just has this in the bag. I do think it's going to be there's going to be goals going both sides, but I do have Orlando coming out on top.
Our people with us live on YouTube, they've been voting all episode long. The results are in. Orlando, 54%. Washington, 46%. Close. Very close. If that is a testament to how this game is going to unfold. I have a couple other quick predictions that I want to get from you guys quickly. Who wins MVP of this final? Darian?
Marta.
Of the final, Marta.
Marta.
Okay.
Yeah. If Orlando wins, Marta. It has to be Marta.
I guess I could see it going to a goalkeeper too.
Yeah.
If it's high scoring, could it go to a keeper?
Come on, Anna. Let's do it.
I don't
girl.
know.
No,
I don't know.
alright.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Even if Marta doesn't score, I think she still will get it. She's just that influential. We'll see how it unfolds. This game happening at CPKC Stadium in Kansas City. It's on the river. Do we get a river ball? Sandra.
Fingers crossed. I'm always here for the river balls. Let's go.
Darian?
I don't care.
Come on, Amanda, come through.
Sure.
Oh, hilarious. Guys, this is awesome. I say no. I say no, River Goal. These players are too talented. It's such a backwards thing to me because you don't want to hit it out of the stadium.
Yeah, who's shooting it like that?
Shawinga did.
I just shooting at the river goal.
Yeah.
Oh, it
Hilarious.
was a warm-up.
So
Wasn't
exactly.
warm-ups.
Guys, that does it for our NWSL 2024 Championship preview. Orlando against Washington. You can watch it Saturday on CBS. Coverage starts on Golazo Network. Listen to Darian and all her great takes there starting at 6:30 Central, I believe, 7:30 or 6:30 Eastern time. 8 o'clock kickoff on CBS. If you're headed to Kansas City and you see us around town, let us know. Say hi. Thanks, everyone, so much for joining us. Enjoy the final. We'll be back tomorrow on YouTube and on Golazo Network for Attacking Third. Follow us everywhere you get your podcasts. For Mark, Darian, Sandra, I'm Lisa. This was Attacking Third.